Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have a new trope rec video for you. In this one I'm going to be talking about childhood friends to enemies to lovers. This is probably one of my favorite tropes because you sort of have the background of them being like best friends when they were kids, and then something happens where they fall out and kind of hate each other for a while before sort of coming around full circle. I feel like it's like the best of all the worlds. Like you got sort of best friends to lovers, but you also got the enemies to lovers vibes. Like it's just like everything all nice in one little book, and I just really love that. So the first book I feel like is like the epitome of this trope is Bully by Penelope Douglas. This is obviously one of the most popular Penelope Douglas books. I think this is the one that really sort of took off first, that everyone sort of found. And this one follows Jared and Tate, and they were neighbors. They're still neighbors. Throughout their whole childhood, they were best friends, like inseparable, couldn't find one without the other kind of thing, always hanging out together. And then one summer, Jared goes away to stay with his dad for the summer and comes back and just like wants nothing to do with Tate anymore and is super mean to her and obviously is bullying her. It's obviously a bully romance. And he's just like can't stand her, like is really awful to her, does things purposely to make her angry at him and just like different things like that. But obviously, like, you know, things go from there, and they obviously eventually get over that. This one I really love. This one just has like a special, like, nostalgic place in my heart as being like one of the first, actually it probably was the first bully romance I ever read, and it was the first book I bought that I think was like close to being independently published, because I don't think it actually is independently published, but I feel like it actually reads like an indie book, which is nice because I find sometimes traditionally published books aren't the same, and so it does read like an indie book, which I appreciate, and I really obviously love this one. It's one of my favorites, and so I had to include it in this video. Next is Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. This is actually like a series. There's Him, Us, and Epic. You could probably just read Him, though. I'm pretty sure it doesn't end on like a cliffhanger or anything like that. It just continues in Us. But Him follows two hockey players who were best friends when they were kids. They always went to this hockey camp together, and they would be like roommates and hang out together the whole time. And one of them is gay, one of them, as far as he knows, is straight. And something happens when they're in like their last summer. I think they're like 15 or something. They're at this camp, and something happens between them that one of them decides basically like, I can never see him again. And they go their separate ways. They don't really see each other for a while until now they're both in college, and they end up running into each other at a hockey game, and one of them mentions to the other that they're going back to work at this camp every summer, and that, you know, they still go back and like see the coaches and whatever, and the other one decides, hey, like maybe I'll go, you know, show up at the camp too, because this guy hasn't talked to me in like 10 years or 5 years or whatever it is. And so he goes and shows up at the camp, and it sort of goes from there. And this one I just really liked because it definitely, like, they were like such strong like friends when they were kids, and then they just like completely separate from each other and don't talk for a long time. And I think this one's a little bit less like enemies. Like, they're not like purposely nasty to each other or anything, but there's definitely like that falling out where they weren't really friends and then they sort of come back together. And I really love this book. This is like in my top 10 favorite books of all time, so I had to include it in this video. Next is Bad Boys Break Hearts by Macaulay Smeltzer. This one is the first in like a college new adult romance series, but you can definitely read it on its own. I've only read this first one and was totally fine. And this one follows a guy and a girl who were, I believe they were neighbors when they were kids, and so they hung out all the time and were like best friends, and then all of a sudden one of them moves, and they're just kind of like, all communication ceases. And similar to Him, they both end up at the same college eventually, and she ends up running into him literally after leaving his roommate's bedroom, and he is just like super nasty to her like right off the bat, and she's like, whoa, like what's your problem, dude? And so she's like, I'm gonna stay clear of him. And it's definitely got the like the enemies aspect, I feel like, a little bit more with this one, because he's just like a jerk to her at the beginning, and she doesn't really understand why. And they were like best friends when they were kids. Like I said, they lived next door to each other, hung out all the time, and obviously like they meet again in college and things go from there. I really liked this one at the time I read it. I will say it's been a long time since I read this one, so I don't remember it fully, but I do remember liking it at the time, and it definitely falls into this trope. The guy in this book is also a baseball player, so if you like sports romances, this one's a little bit more unique. I feel like there aren't a lot of baseball romances. Maybe that's just me not reading them, but I feel like I haven't seen very many. Next is the one I feel like everyone is seeing coming. This is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. I probably should have mentioned that this was actually probably the Penelope Douglas book that put their books on the map. This one was arguably more popular than Bully, although Bully definitely has a special place in my heart. But Punk 57 I think has similar vibes. The two main characters in this book, I feel like everyone has heard about this book at this point, but two main characters in this book are pen pals when they're kids, and they sort of tell each other everything through these letters for years and years, but they don't know who the other one is. And then eventually the boy ends up moving to where the girl is living and sees her and sort of hates her, like, on first sight. He's like, oh my god, this is nothing like the girl I've been talking to all these years, like, she's so fake, and, like, I don't like her anymore, and whatever. And there's definitely, like, an enemies vibe for a little while, and she doesn't know who he is right away, so there's definitely, like, a little bit of, like, him being angry at her and her, like, not really caring because she doesn't even know who he is. And obviously I feel like that's all I really need to say about this one. Like I said, everyone's heard about this one, but it definitely falls into this trope. Next is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, another fan favorite. I really liked this book. I really love the new cover of it that's out too. I'll make sure that when I put it on the screen, I'll put the new cover. I really like that cover better than the orange one. And this one follows a girl whose dad buys, like, a vacation home on, like, a beach or something, some, like, beach town, where he's like, okay, this is where we're gonna spend the weekends, like, we're gonna make family memories and whatever. And when they go to look at the house, at, like, an open house or whatever, she goes into one of the bedrooms and there's a boy in the closet reading a book, and she's like, well, what on earth are you doing here? And he's like, oh, like, my family, we live next door and they're really loud, so I, like, sneak over here to read because the house has been empty for a while and whatever. And she's like, okay, like, that's a little strange, but, like, whatever. And her dad ends up buying this house, and this boy and her become, like, best friends, and they turn this, like, closet that they found him reading in into, like, a little library where they just, like, hang out reading. And obviously as they get older, like, their relationship changes a little bit, but then they have a falling out. This one is written in the style where, like, you're watching them in the present day, but you're also watching them in the past, so you know that there was, like, some sort of, like, rift between them or something that went down that caused them to go their separate ways at some point, but you're also watching them kind of, like, fall in love as kids and also, like, watching them in the present day together. So I really think this book is really well done. I think it's super unique. There's been a couple books that came out recently that were very similar, like, vibes to this one, but I think this one was very unique when it was written. And I really like that about it, and I love that they like books. I just love when book characters like books. That's, like, such a, like, random thing, but, like, I don't know, I just think it's so cute that they were, like, reading their little books together in their closet. Next is All the Little Lies by S.J. Silvis. This one is, I believe, the first in a series as well, but it's, like, companion books, so you don't have to read the next one. I didn't. And this one is another bully romance. It follows a girl who is at the school, and there's, like, this boy who she was best friends with when she was, like, younger, and he is obviously bullying her and just, like, being super mean, and she doesn't know why. Like, she just can't figure out what the heck this dude's problem is. And then he finally, like, tells her, and obviously, like, stuff happens and it goes from there. But this one's really good. I love a good bully romance, so, like, any aspect where that is present I'm good with. And I also, like I said, I love the vibe of, like, oh, they were best friends and now they just, like, really hate each other. And that definitely was, like, present in this book, so I really liked that. Next was Enemies by Tijin, and this one I really loved. Actually, I knew I was gonna like this one. I don't know, something about the cover just, like, spoke to me with this one. And this one follows a guy and a girl who were best friends when they were kids, and they stopped talking at one point or another, and now they're both in college. This girl is, like, living in, like, I think she's living in, like, a basement, like, super tiny apartment kind of thing. Like, not even an apartment, like, literally, like, a shoebox. And she's living there, and he is, like, the golden boy of campus, like, star football player or whatever. And she just wants nothing to do with him. And he ends up coming over one night and being like, I need to talk to you right now. And she's like, what the heck do you want now? Like, blah, blah, blah. And a whole lot of stuff happens, but he ends up sort of, like, being there for her and, like, her moments of need and stuff, and it was just, like, really cute. And I liked the, like, aspect of him being, like, no, you're gonna listen to me kind of thing. Like when she's like, no, I hate you, like get out, he's like, no, like I'm not leaving. And I just really liked that whole vibe of this book. Like I said, sports romance, it's got the football player, really liked that as well, and like the college setting was nice as well. Really liked this one. And lastly is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I feel like everyone is reading this book right now. This is very, very similar to Love in Other Words. Like I said, that book was written, I think it was very unique in its time, but it's definitely had some sort of like copycat type books. And this is one of them where it follows a girl who, I believe she's only going to this house for the summer, and there's two boys that live next door, and the older brother, I think it is always kind of pushing the younger brother to hang out with this girl so that he can go hang out with his own friends. And so he's kind of always brushing the brother off with this girl and whatever, and they end up becoming like super close when they're really young kids and they're hanging out all the time. And then obviously something happens where they lose touch, and this one again is written in the perspective where they've now kind of come face to face years later after they're falling out, and you're kind of watching them fall in love as teenagers and kids, but you're also watching them in the present day, and you know something happened that like caused a rift between them that caused them to stop talking. This one again a little bit less on the enemies, but like definitely a falling out between them. And I really liked this one. I sort of say that this one is like Love in Other Words, but like set in Canada. That's like pretty much the main difference. Like the falling out reason I'm pretty sure was different between the two books, but like very, very similar storylines. But I did really enjoy this book. And so those are all of the recs I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I'll see you next time.